Tyson Griffin versus Nick Lentz. I'll go for a Tyson Griffin decision here, on the basis that I think Nick Lentz will put up a very good fight. Paul Kelly versus TJ O'Brien. For some reason, I just feel like I've heard of or know TJ O'Brien from somewhere. I don't know where, because looking at his record, he's a debutee. He's not fought in the UFC before, or at least not in a long time if he has. And he usually wins submission after submission after submission after submission. Paul Kelly, a British fighter who's got a bit of a rocky record. I don't see this going well for him, actually. I think this will probably be the end of him in the UFC for a bit. I think TJ O'Brien will probably win. I'll go for choke submission in the second there. Edson Barboza, another one. I feel like I've heard of him, or know of him from somewhere before. Debutee, though. Perfect record of 6. And he's fighting Mike Lillo, who has a better record, but I couldn't see many calibers on it. I'll go for Edson Barboza, but I might go for decision there. This is the first really interesting match that I can see on this card. This is Karo Parisian versus Dennis Hallman. It depends on whether he will be able to throw Dennis Hallman about or not. This one I think is going to be a very, very tough match to call if Karo Parisian comes in on full form. And I don't really know who I'm going to go for on this, to be totally honest. I think I'll go for Dennis Hallman by decision, just because I'm not convinced that Karo Parisian will show what he is truly capable of there. Aaron Simpson and Mark Munoz are facing each other next on the card, both coming off losses. I think Mark Munoz will win this one. I'm going to go for decision on that. Matt Brown is fighting Brian Foster. Brian Foster, a hit squad fighter who I have met on my States tour. Matt Brown, extremely high up in terms of capabilities and wins. He's a formidable name. They do have a tendency to push Brian Foster to get better and better each time by giving him very, very difficult people. Matt Brown is a very, very difficult person. Will be, I think, a very, very difficult person for Brian Foster to beat. Having said that, I'm going to go for Brian Foster because I have the confidence in the camp that he comes from. And I also think that because he's being pushed at this early stage, not horrendously, he's not being entered into squash matches, but he is being challenged quite severely each time he fights. I think that he will probably win this one. I'm going to go for decision though, and I do think that Brian Foster in this match is probably an underdog. But there we are. If he doesn't win, then perhaps it will be entertaining enough to be fight of the night. I don't know. If not, this is another possibility. George Sotiropoulos and Joe Lozon. Joe Lozon, once a contender, not really anymore since his knee injury. George, a tougher who has always been overlooked, but who sort of silently has risen through the ranks because he's such an expert on the ground. This is going to be a huge match. I don't know who's going to win this one either. You know, maybe 2 years ago I would have said Joe. Now I'm thinking more George. But I don't know if I can see Joe Lozon being submitted by George or not. Maybe a bar submission in the third, I think. I think George has proved that he's probably going to be here to stay. Joe may be a name, I'm just not confident on how much power there is behind that name in recent times. Phil Davis versus Tim Boach. Again, another very difficult one to call. And I'm tempted to go with Tim Boach, but I couldn't tell you why. That's almost a guess, I think, on that one. Gerald Harris and Miguel Josie Falcao Goncalves or something. He's got a whole sentence to his name. He's also got an extremely long record, which I think entitles him to be at this point on the card. But I'm not convinced that that actually stands for much, because I couldn't see many names or any calibers that I recognise. Therefore, I think Gerald Harris will still win. I'm going to go for TKO in the third there. Brings me to the main and co-main events. Matt Hughes versus BJ Penn first. This is a best of 3 match. The first time, you'll remember, BJ Penn won and got the title. The second time he lost. The problem with this match is that I'm not confident BJ Penn can perform anywhere near as well as he used to at welterweight. And even when he could at his best, he was always third place to George St Pierre and Matt Hughes. I think that he can fight and win against anybody in 155 pounds and below, except for Frankie Edgar. Why he hasn't chosen to fight a few contenders and go back to the title, you know, after Frankie Edgar loses it, I don't know. I think this return to welterweight is a very bad idea for him. But I also think it won't be the end of his career in the UFC. They won't get rid of him. They just won't get rid of BJ Penn, particularly not yet. I see this being a Matt Hughes decision myself, although I have to say Matt Hughes has surprised even me lately with his amount of finishes over some sort of reasonable calibre. So I'm going to go for decision, but I almost wouldn't be surprised now if that is a finish. And Quinton Jackson versus Loyoto Machida. Haven't heard much from Machida since the Rua matches. And Quinton Jackson I don't think I've heard much of since before that. Size advantage probably goes to Jackson, but I think that Loyoto will probably come back on top form, and I hope and I think he should probably win. I don't know if it'll be a stoppage. I'm going to go for decision, Loyoto, because I'm not confident on his ability to finish. And I hope that he still keeps it exciting, which is one thing that he was obviously working on sort of before the Rua matches, because I think that Jackson definitely will make it exciting. So that's my prediction.